Nimpo Lake is one of the busiest flyout centers in the entire interior of British Columbia. It's got amazing sightseeing trips from here. You can go down to the Hamathka. You can travel all around the Dean. There's outlying lakes everywhere. There's 3 ways you can get here. You can come to the lake on floats. There is a strip that we're presently located at right next to the lake. And there's also a paved strip up in Anaheim, just a short drive away. Kevin Sutka, who is the president of the Canadian Owners and Pilots Association, had to come in on wheels because he doesn't have floats, but he's here anyway and he talked to us. Thanks for coming out, Kevin.
No problem.
Tell me about COPA, Canadian Owners and Pilots Association, and their association with the Float Plane Association.
The Canadian Owners and Pilots Association represents the interests of all pilots across the country. Of course, there's different sectors of aviation, including seaplanes. And we have various chapters of our association across the country that look after our interests at the local level. And the BC Float Plane Association is one of those local chapters of COPA, one of our COPA flights. So we spent a lot of time working on seaplane issues, access to parks, and making sure that our freedom to fly is protected. And we've done a lot of work with the BC Float Plane Association to do just that out here with the work that they have done to retain access to parks.
Obviously, at first, there was a bit of a control issue about getting into some of these lakes.
They used to have a regulation for what aircraft could go into what lakes at what time of the year and that sort of thing. And they actually made a change to it. So instead of in general having access to various lakes, they denied access to most lakes except for very few. We helped to meet with senior government officials, with the parks people out here in BC, to convince them to change it back to the way it was. And in addition, to use the BC Float Plane Association as stewards for the parks, to put together a partnership to help manage the parks, watching out for people who are abusing the parks, cleaning up messes and that sort of thing that can only be done properly by float planes. So it's worked out to be a tremendous partnership between the two. We've got issues in Ontario right now, for example, where the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources has decided to revise all of their management plans for the various parks. And each park manager is going about deciding how best to manage their park. And typically they don't like to see float planes in the parks for no real good reason. And we're using the success we have here in BC to illustrate to the Ministry of Natural Resources in Ontario that they should put together much the same sort of relationships. We want to get a policy in place in Ontario where they not only accept float planes in the parks as a general rule, but they have a procedure for them to help the parks managers manage the parks. In essence, be the eyes in the sky. And that's the key ingredient that they have here in BC with the relationship they have with BC Parks. They are the eyes in the sky for them.
It saves a huge amount of resources for the BC Parks people. They don't have to be out everywhere. They can rely on some of this information coming in.
Absolutely, and it doesn't cost them anything.
So, where's the bad news? Is there any? is there something, a downside to this at all?
Well, there's always clouds, but there's always silver linings in every cloud. So yes, there are issues that we have to fight. We have issues with the environment now. We have fuel issues and that sort of thing that we have to face. But on the other side of the coin, aviation remains the primary way to get around in this country. So much of this country is only connected by aviation. So regardless of the challenges with environment and fuel and that sort of thing, we have to find a way to make it work because it's the only way to keep the country connected. And that's partly what I spend a lot of my time doing, is reminding people of that important role that aviation fulfilled for 100 years and is going to fulfill for another 1,000. That's my job.
Well, now that we have the national picture, let's talk to the folks that inspired the birth of the BC Float Plane Association. The BC Float Plane Association has been around for 11 years, and that whole thing started because of one letter. Tell me what was in that letter, Nick.
Well, the letter to me was under Section 27. I was basically breaking the law for landing in a provincial park. And they had changed the rules 3 or 4 years before that, and they decided in their wisdom that they knew best and we were to stay out of the park. I contacted the parks and no, they'd changed Section 27 and we're a bad boy, but they weren't going to prosecute it this time. They just gave me a goodwill slap on the hand. And I thought, well, you know what, that's not, I don't think that's right. So originally I contacted COPA.
COPA published Nick's problem in the newspaper. I read the story. And I phoned Nick, and we talked, and I talked to Keith, and because we'd flown together for many years, and I talked to a lot of people that I knew, and we decided that we should do something about this problem.
So from there we pursued it through COPA. They put me on the BC Aviation Council. They were asked about it 3 or 4 years before that, and they just said, that's fine with us, you can close the parks, it don't bother us at all.
Nobody talked to a float plane pilot in the early 90s about operating in parks.
We'd organized a meeting with some of the officials in Williams Lake. So the parks people showed up, thought country bumpkins would be there and we'd just pass it off and it'll all blow away. Well, there was about 40 or 50 people show up this meeting. They had no idea how pissed off people were about the situation with parks being closed. From that point, then we decided to form the BC Floatplane Association.
We had to find a way to get the legislation changed, and through a number of meetings with parks over the years, and in 2004, I think it was, we finally got the legislation changed, and subsequent agreements and working agreement with BC Parks.
Today, it's a good working relationship. The best thing we did was make a deal. I think it's better for parks, and I think it's a lot better for the pilots of British Columbia and the people traveling through.
When you guys who were here at the very beginning, when you started the whole thing out, you look out and you see this raft full of planes, and every year there's lots of people that come from all over BC. How does that make you feel?
It's very rewarding, and it's not only BC. We have members out of Alaska, many of the states. We even have a member out of Sweden that has actually been here. He's not here this year, but has been here previous years. So they come from all over. We've attracted a fair following.
I had no idea from that first letter that it would ever turn into this well of an organized group, and we'll fight for the rights of pilots in Canada.
We've been the envy of many organizations across North America because of the way we've approached this and the working relationship we have now with the people that used to be our adversaries, really. So it's been quite a story, I guess. Yeah.
DVD copies of the Wings Over Canada series are available, singly or in box sets at wingsovercanada.ca or at 1-866-909-4647.